Hi, Harper. So great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm really excited to have you here in this session. And I'm Minta, that's my nickname. And I'll be facilitating today's sessions. And the students have really been looking forward to hearing from you today. And we prepared a short slide introducing you. But if it's all right, could we invite you to briefly introduce yourself in your own words?
Of course.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harper. I am currently near Kofu in Yamanashi with very, very bad internet. So if everything goes horribly wrong, just let me know and I'll try and jump back on. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. My background, I'm an engineer, a software engineer. I've been programming computers for most of my life. I started programming computers when I was a child in the early 80s. I'm old. And I have spent a long time building for the web. I started my career in 2001 building encyclopedias for the internet back in the day. And then I was at a company called Threadless, which was a t-shirt company in Chicago. We invented, theoretically, crowdsourcing, which was a big deal at the time. Through that, that's actually how I met Joy-san and how I started interacting with him long ago. After Threadless, I was the CTO for the Obama campaign, which was in 2011 to 2012. So that was the second election for Barack Obama. This was a absolutely crazy job, working 24 hours a day, 6 and 7 days a week, very intense, not very fun, to be honest, very, very hard. But it was very worthwhile. We invented a lot of technology. We spent a lot of time building social media innovation. We spent a lot of time building various web technologies. And I see mentioned here Project Narwhal. Project Narwhal was a way to connect people's identities with the campaign. So you could log in, you could see people who are near you, you could participate in the campaign in a very holistic way. It also allowed us to do some really cool social media targeting. The downside is that technology was then used for misinformation campaigns in 2014 in Ukraine, in 2016 in the US, and so on and so forth. And so in many ways, this was a Pandora's box, so to speak, that we accidentally opened and unleashed on the world. I think it would have been done anyway, but we were the ones that did it first. After that, I started a company called Modest, which was a e-commerce website, mobile app that allowed people to buy things on the phone. I had spent some time in China and I had noticed WeChat, and we just were trying to copy some of the features of WeChat and put them into the US. We eventually sold that company to PayPal. I spent some time at PayPal. PayPal was a very interesting place to work, and I learned a whole bunch. I left there in 2018, and I then started another company in the midst of COVID era called Galactic. And Galactic was this was a Web3 company. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of visual video chat things. We spent a lot of time doing NFTs. We spent a whole bunch of time trying to make a stablecoin debit card. And around 2023, there was a lot of uncertainty in the US around fintech and stable coins and crypto. And actually the beacon that we found was via, there was a lot of great things happening in Japan. And especially because the stable coin legislation was about to take to appear, I think, in June of 2023. And a whole bunch of exciting things were happening in Japan. We spent a little bit of time seeing if we could launch our product here in Japan, and we decided that we could not. So we went back to the US and we shut the product down. We turned the company off, and then we fired everyone, including myself, which is my favorite thing to do, because my favorite thing is to not have a job and to just hack on lots of things as fast as possible and build all sorts of fun things. That's really my main hobby. And so then we started hacking a lot on AI and spending a lot of time building AI tools, all sorts of fun things. We built a meme search engine. We screwed around and built a agent that will purchase things online. And we learned a whole bunch, and we started a new company called 2389 AI. And 2389 AI is a collaborative AI agent system, I would think. But imagine that you have 20,000 AI agents in one line chat that then you can talk to and interact with and have them do anything you want. And this is kind of our dream of having this kind of workforce of sorts that can do anything that you want. And so right now, we've done all sorts of really ridiculous things, which I can show you. It's absolutely ridiculous. We gave our agents social media. We gave them blogs. And so they blog and they post to social media as a way of sharing context and sharing what they're working on, because with so many agents, you don't really know who is doing what. It's very, very bizarre. If I could go back in time and tell myself this was what I would be working on 3 or 5 years ago, I would not believe it, because it's so very strange. I spend all of my time, all of it, vibe coding. And in fact, early vibe coding, like I have a terminal up just on right here, and right there is some bugs that are being fixed, I suppose, and the code is being deployed. So I spend a lot of time, and so I'm looking forward to hearing from Minta as well, and to learning more about how the vibe coding is happening in Japan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for your intro. And honestly, your background is just amazing. So I'm really excited and a little bit nervous to talk with you today. So thank you. And let me briefly introduce myself and share what this course is about. And I lead the design and teaching of this course together with a great team. And we focus on building actual products using emerging technologies like Web3, blockchain, and generative AI. And we also explore vibe coding as part of this course. And to be honest, personally, I've been totally into it myself recently. And by the way, did you notice this is being translated in real time? Yeah. And this translation tool we're using today, I vibe coded it with Claude course.
Wow.
Yes. And it's
Very
powered
cool.
by, oh, really? Thank you. Yeah. It's powered by OpenAI's Whisper and GPT-4o mini model in the background. Yeah. And just to note, I'm not very good at speaking English without preparing, so I'll be using a lot of Japanese during this session maybe. So, but right now I'm able to speak English because I have a script to follow. But with this translation tool and the amazing support from our team, I feel very comfortable now running this session. Yes. And all right, so now I'd love to take a little time to ask you, Harper, so some things I've been wondering about. And I've been really into vibe coding lately and using it basically every day. So I picked 4 questions I'm personally curious about. Okay. So,すみません。受講生の皆さん、英語ばっかりですみません。ここからは私が気になっていることをハーパーさんにいくつか聞いていきたいと思います。皆さんも感想やコメントぜひ Discord に書いてみてください。はい。So, alright. So, here's my first question. And Harper, you've often described your approach as vibe coding, but lately you've been calling it Codegen more intuitionally. And what excites you about today's AI-powered Codegen? What feels powerful or fun about it for you? And what kind of innovation do you think it enables for developers, for how we build software, or even for society at large?
That's a very good and very big question. I I think such a hard question. So first, the reason that I have changed from calling it vibe coding to Codegen is because as someone who's programmed their entire life, I find that all coding is kind of vibe coding. You get into the flow, you get into that like Zen moment where where you can't see any but the code. And you're just going and you don't know what's around you and you don't know if 10 minutes have passed or if 2 hours have passed. I feel like that's the vibe part where you can just kind of let go and do the thing. And it's I think there's some magic to it. And I find it very, very compelling. And I don't know how to describe it. So I was always uncomfortable calling vibe coding because I always felt that the vibe part was the important part, and that's all code for me. It's all vibe coding. And so I started thinking, okay, but what is it actually doing? And what it's actually doing is it's actually doing code generation. And so I feel like code gen matches more appropriately with what it's actually happening behind the scenes. Where I type to Claude code, and that's what I use mostly. Then I say something like, I want to write an app that translates in real time, which I think is very cool, by the way. Is this open source?
No, not now, but maybe future.
You should make it. We should collaborate. We'll collaborate, make it open source. But like if I type that into the machine and it just does it, it generates code. And so the vibe, the feeling is not being generated. And so I think it's code gen is more appropriate. So, but the question was bigger than this. What is the impact and how does this change kind of programming and our identity? I think that it's very dire. And what I mean by that is I think we're in trouble. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if anyone does, but I do know that our jobs are changing drastically. When I started as a programmer in 2001, I remember going to this floor, which was full of programmers. As far as I could see, cubicles, very corporate, full of programmers. Of course, I dressed up. I had a little, had to wear tie, and make my hair different, and hide my earrings and all this stuff. But I went there and I was a Java programmer, and there was probably, maybe 100 Java programmers. And then 5 years later, there was 20 Java programmers. And then 5 years later, there was 2 PHP programmers. And then 5 years later, everything got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And we're finally to this point where maybe we don't need any programmers. And I don't think we're quite there, but we might be there soon. For example, when I started Modest, we very quickly got to 20 people. When I started Galactic, we very quickly got to 12 people. When I started 2389, we're pretty good with about 4 people. And so it just keeps shrinking down and down and down. I have many friends who have built companies recently that have just a handful of employees, 1 or 2. And I find this to be really shocking because for a bunch of reasons. I think the first reason is because as a programmer, I kind of want to make sure that we keep programming. Love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. But as a CEO, I don't want to pay for anyone to program computers. I would rather pay for the robots to program the computers. It's much cheaper. And so I think that this means that programming as we know it, or software engineering as we know it, is over. I think it's done. I think if you were to start school today for software engineering, that might be very complicated because, well, I don't know what the job looks like. Nobody knows. And so maybe that's very hard. But talking, and this is something that Joy-san and I have talked a lot about, and I know he's really big about, like multidisciplinary, being able to think about product development on one hand and like software engineering on another, and understanding the whole problem so that you can guide the robot to find the right solution. I think that's the future. I don't know what it looks like though. And I have a lot more thoughts about it, but I'll stop there because that was a lot already.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so inspiring and it's very interesting for me. So next question is a second question. In this class, we've been exploring vibe coding ourselves using tools like Vercel from Vercel and create.xyz and Replit, and to build mockups for customer interviews. So from your perspective as someone who actually built things, I'd love to hear how you practice vibe coding in your day-to-day work. And could you walk us through your workflow, including Claude or any other tool you use?
Yes, this is my favorite topic because I think I do things a little bit different, but afterwards you have to tell me your workflow too.
Okay.
But you can say it in Japanese, and then someone else will figure it out, so it's
Okay.
less stressful.
Yeah.
So I think a lot about the. I do a lot of work to define what I'm trying to build. That's the first process, and so what I do is I start typically with ChatGPT 4.0 on my phone. So I just pick up my phone and then go for a walk or do something that is not like it can be asynchronous. This is really important. And I will type into there a very simple prompt. And just for safekeeping, I document all this at my blog, which is harper.blog. I just put that in the chat, and I'll post a couple links there in a second. But what I do is I do this prompt that I think is my best prompt I've ever made. And like all of us, we've made a lot of prompts, but this is my favorite prompt. And it's my favorite prompt because it has worked consistently for a very long time. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in the Discord because I think that's probably the best place for it. But this is the prompt. And I'm sure it can be done in Japanese. I'm sure it can be done in any language. But the prompt basically says, ask me one question at a time so we can develop a thorough step-by-step spec for this idea. And the important part there is the one question at a time, because I don't want to do any work. I want to do zero work. If I wanted to do work, I would program it myself. I don't want to program it. I want the machine to do it. So I don't want to even do work in this part. So I ask one question at a time. And you can do this with everything. If you have a hard email you want to respond to, and you're just trying to help ChatGPT help you, you can say, ask me one question at a time to develop this email. And it just asks these short little questions, and then you just answer. What's nice about this is the other thing I'll add here is I can say, I prefer yes or no questions. And when I do that, it'll just output yes or no questions. And this will say something like maybe the idea is a real-time translation app for WebEx. And then it will say something like, does it have to be WebEx? Could it be anything? Yes. Does it have to be so-and-so? And no. And then you just answer these questions. And maybe that goes on for 30 minutes. Why I think it's interesting to do this on a walk is you can use voice mode, or you can use anything else and just put on your head and go for a walk, kind of zone out and think about it. Because right now what you're trying to build is you're trying to build the first version of the spec. This is before I do any coding. And so then what I will do is once I have a pretty good version of the spec, it'll just answer all these questions. Right before the last question, I will change the model to a reasoning model. Something like an O3 or DeepSeek or anything like that. And you can run it locally. I use ChatGPT. And then once I get to O3 or what have you, I will say to it, can you build a very robust spec? And all of these are here in this blog post. This outlines my workflow. I might have a Japanese version of this, by the way. I'll see. But so then I will just say, can you build a very robust spec out of this? And it'll just generate a spec. I don't think about the spec. The spec is just there to fit in the context. It has nothing to do with anything for the most part. Then once it is, the spec is generated, I then do another prompt, which I am very proud of as well, which I think is okay, but it doesn't have to be here, but I'll put this one in there in the Discord anyway. And the reason why I think this prompt is good is because it does an interesting thing that I was taught by some friends. What it does, and I won't go through it step by step, but what it does is it has the model really do some thinking. So it'll say, make a plan, then make another plan, then break that plan down into smaller pieces, and then break that plan down into smaller pieces. And then the last part is the best. It actually generates the prompts for the code gen. So I don't have to write the prompts myself. I have the LLM generate the prompts. This way, I'm just thinking about, is this the right thing? So just to go back, I went on a walk. I talked to ChatGPT. I had very small, short conversations. It then developed a spec using a reasoning model, and then developed all of the prompts using that same reasoning model. And then I have a document that is just all the prompts I need. And so when I was using the web, like a ChatGPT or a Claude, I would just paste those, I would paste those into ChatGPT and it would just generate them. When I wasn't using Claude Code, when I migrated to using Claude Code, I would set that entire thing into a docs folder. And while it was in the docs folder, I would then tell Claude Code, just go ahead and get this done. And that worked pretty good. And so then Claude Code would just go do this. And I would actually have it stop after each prompt to just make sure that it's okay. And I did write my Claude Code workflow up as well. But what's really important here, I think, the important thing is there's like 3 steps. The first one is planning, building the spec. The second one is generating the prompts. And the third one is executing the prompts. And I don't think it really matters what each of these do. But what's really nice about it is the first one, you generate a spec. This is the same thing you would generate if you were working with a consulting firm or you're working with a friend who is building it. Anyone can do this. You don't need any experience to do this. And you can do it asynchronously. I have a toddler, a 3.5-year-old, who's super into Anpanman, and all he wants to do is hang out. So I can do this while chasing him around being Bikeman. The second one is developing the prompt plan. This one, once again, anyone can do because you're just pushing the LLM to interpret the spec. You, once again, don't have to have any experience. This is very easy. The third one is really magical because you're just having the AI agent interpret the first 2. And so once again, I find this great because the only work I did was in the very beginning, answering yes or no questions. Okay, does that make sense? That was a lot.
Oh, really, thank you. Yeah, I have to try it. And
it's really fun.
Yeah. And a context is very important, I learned. Yeah. And I'll tell you my workflow. So, and we've actually been doing something really little bit similar in this course. And we built MVPs and quick prototypes and use them to talk to users, get feedback, and improve the product's core value. And Vibe coding helps us move fast through that loops, I think. So usually we start by thinking through what we want to make it, and we refine the specs by chatting with ChatGPT. And it's a little similar. And then we figure out the structure and sometimes use tools like Vercel or Cloud Core or something to build similar UIs, simple UIs. And personally, I follow the same process too. And this translation tool we're using today, I made it myself that way. I clarified the idea with GPT and then built it using Cloud Code and other tools. Yeah, it's simple workflow. And it was really helpful to hear about your usual workflow. So now I'd like to ask a follow-up question. When you're doing Codegen Vibe Coding, are there any things you try to be especially mindful of? For example, things like writing clear specs, applying TDD, you said, or how to work with AI in a more thoughtful way. And also, any advice for someone just getting started with vibe coding?
That's a good question. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think the right answer is a very quick summary, which is the first thing is you want to be very defensive when you're coding, and so test-driven development is really important. I use pre-commit hooks. So there's a Python package called pre-commit that is very handy because what it does is it will run all your tests before you commit your code to GitHub. I use a lot of CI, so just making sure the tests all pass, all of that. Very almost very crazy level, like very serious. I'm like a testing otaku at this point in time. All I do is test everything. Everything is testing. Everything I do is test. It's so ridiculous because I don't want to. And I should say that the AI agent is writing the tests as well. And so but the first thing I do is be very serious about testing. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to type into Claude Code, write a bunch of code, and then I want to leave. I want to leave the room and have it go. I don't want to have to watch it. When I first read your question, what do you pay attention to when doing Codegen? I think Codegen is really funny because I can pay attention to anything. I can go outside. I can just mess around. I can play a video game. We don't have to pay attention to the code anymore. And I love this. And so, but the only way to do that is to make sure that you have very good specs in the beginning, make sure that you have very serious test-driven development and good test infrastructure. And then the next thing that we've been trying to figure out, we've been spending a lot of time to figure this out, is how do you do collaboration within Codegen? So if you and I were working together, Minta, how would we collaborate? Because you're over there, I'm over here, but more importantly, we can chat. But how do our agents collaborate? How do our agents understand what's happening with one another? We think about this a lot. So that's really what we've been working on, is how do you make the agents collaborate? And it's very funny and very hard, but I think it's doable.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this will be my last question before we move on to question from the student. So you've said that vibe coding is shifting how software is built, and given your experience driving innovation across politics, startups, and tech, what do you think is coming next for developers, for tools, or even for society?
I like how the questions are so big. This is so big. This is like a huge question. I think within technology, within working around this, that a lot of that things will never be the same. They'll never go back to how they were. What's exciting is that everyone is at the same level. Even if you're very good at tech, that doesn't mean that you are good at vibe coding. And if you're very good at vibe coding, you may not be good at tech. I don't think it matters. I think what matters is, are you able to get the thing done that you like to get done? And that's something that I am really excited about. For instance, my brother is not a programmer, but he has built a couple video games. He built a system that allows him to take a cartoon and make into animated video, all from vibe coding, because he was able to think of what he wanted and then use the AI agents and ChatGPT and Claude, etc., to like get this thing done. And it's very interesting, right? Like this is so cool. I find that to be very compelling, and I'm very happy that this is happening. But I do think that there are some downsides. It used to be that we would think that the first people who would be out of work would be truck drivers or warehouse workers or blue collar workers, people that were doing things like that. But I think it's actually going to be knowledge workers, accountants, software engineers, people who are working in Excel, people who are doing, insurance, these type of things. None of us will have jobs in 10 years, maybe, if we're lucky. So what happens? I was actually talking to a good friend of mine about this. And I think the question is not what happens, because none of us will know what's going to happen, but I think it's how do you prepare? And what do you do in the meantime? For me, I decided that I just wanted to work on fun things with friends. So maybe, I don't know, maybe this is my last software job. Maybe after this, I have to become a carpenter or something. But so I just want to work with friends, and I want to build something that is fun. And so that's really exciting with vibe coding. But I do think that it's worthwhile to think about what things are going to be hard in the future, what things are going to be not so easy for AI. And I think inventing, maybe, adding creativity, maybe not, I don't know. But I think it's worthwhile to think about how do you tap into not just the science side of your brain, but how do you tap into the creativity side of your brain? Where do you find inspiration? Where are you looking in nature, or where are you looking in literature, or in anime, or in comic books, or in art, to find inspiration to build the things that we need for this world? Even though the AI is the one building it, we are the ones that have to think of it. So I think there is still hope for that, but it's very difficult, very, very, very difficult. And I do not know the right answer. I am concerned. I think that you all are lucky you live in Japan, because you have health insurance and you have infrastructure to support you. In the US, it's going to be like Mad Max. It's going to be horrible. We're going to have to watch out. So, but we'll have cool cars. That's about it.
Yeah. And in my opinion, to use generative AI in a positive way, I believe it's really important for us to learn not just the good sides, but also the risk and limitations. Yeah, and by sharing what we will learn, just like in the session you said you talk, we can help others use it responsibility too. So it's so incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much. So thank you so much. And time really flew by. So this has been such a fun and inspiring session. And Harper, thank you so much for being with us today. The students were incredibly engaged, and our discourse was filled with comment, reactions, and energy throughout this session. It's clear that this was a meaningful and inspiring experience for everyone here. So if it's okay, we'd love to hear just a short final comment or impression from you.
I think the exciting thing is about some of this vibe coding and some of the AI stuff is how easy it is to build something and make it accessible to other languages, other cultures, other people. And just like your real-time translation tool, which I'm very impressed by, I really want you to open source it. There's such an interesting opportunity to be able to interact in many ways. For instance, I've been in many Japanese Discords that Joey has invited me to and said, hey, check out this Discord. And almost always I think I can't participate. But now we could write agents that could participate for us, where I write in English and it puts it in Japanese, and back and forth with very little without a lot of degradation of the language. I will stay in the Discord. I'm going to post a translation of all the blog posts in there that I just translated with my translation tool I wrote a few months ago to try and do this. And so you have to give me I'll also send a link to the translation tool. You should give me feedback on if the translations are good, and then 2, if the tool works, because nobody knows. But it's a multi-agent tool that does a lot of translations specifically on for this type of thing. But that's very exciting. I'm super excited to participate. If I can help in the future, please reach out. I'm not often in Japan, but I'm here sometimes. I'm putting my email in the Discord, and feel free to email. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you very much. And 皆さん、それではハーバリドさんに大きな拍手をお願いいたします。